All
Take it
right.
away.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I know we had a lot more signups, so people might be joining us in the next few minutes. We also are going to be sending out a recording of this class for those that missed it. But want to welcome you to our bike-friendly driving class. My name is Kalisa Bowling. I'm a regional planner here at SANDAG, and I manage our sustainable transportation services. SANDAG, for those of you who don't know, San Diego Association of Governments, our region's planning agency, and this class is part of our bike education services. So for those of you not familiar with our services, we offer free bike education classes. We offer group bike rides for employees, as well as free classes and bike rodeos for schools and youth organizations. So if you're interested in having a class offered at your place of employment or a school or youth organization that you work with, then you can sign up on our website and we'll put that link in the chat. Many of your employers may already be part of our employer commuter program, but if you're not, I encourage you to reach out to us so we can help support your employees with sustainable commuting. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Kevin Barras from the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. He's a league certified instructor, has been teaching since about 2005, and he's here to guide us in this class. So over to you, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Yeah, 2005 was a long time ago now. I'm just about due for my 20-year high school anniversary, so that'll be fun. Thanks so much for attending. As Kalisa said, we've got more people signed up, or at least registered, than are in the room right now, so folks will continue to join, which is fine. The class is being recorded. I'll make that recording available to everybody who registers, and then if you'd like to send it out to all your friends and show them how cool you are for attending this class, then we'd appreciate that as well. We do a lot of different types of presentations. I work for the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. Through SANDAG, we're able to put on Bike Commuting 101, Bike Commuting 202, all about e-bikes and some others. This presentation is specifically designed to focus on rules of the road, especially as they pertain to car drivers. And you'll hear me use a phrase throughout this presentation, which sometimes makes people double take. But the concept of, rather than riding a bike, driving a bike. You're driving a bicycle, you're driving a car, you're an active participant in these things. And so there's a lot of stuff to cover. My goal is to stop talking with about 10 minutes left in the hour to allow for some questions and some answers, hopefully. And as that being said, if you want to ask questions throughout, if you're worried I wasn't going to cover something that you had a specific question about, the chat window is there. Please, throughout, put questions and answers in the chat. I'll be asking questions and looking for audience participation there. Kind of helps me know that everyone's, paying attention. In fact, just for fun, go ahead and say hello in the chat window right now, just so I know that I've got some real human beings out there and you're not just using your AIs to transcribe the meeting. Thank you, Cassidy. Good to see you. I see some familiar faces, or I see some familiar names anyway, in the window. So thank you, Cassidy. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you. I got all kinds of people I could call out, so I appreciate you guys being here. So with one more slide of further ado, Bike Anywhere Day is coming up. Thursday, May 15th is Bike Anywhere Day. If you're planning on driving that day, expect to see a bunch of people on bicycles. They're not doing it because they're better than you for riding a bike rather than driving. They're just choosing to take advantage of that one day. There are pit stops all over San Diego County. There are fun things to do and fun things to see. Giveaways, be they t-shirts, coffee, fresh fruit, donuts. Some people, let's see, Sempra Energy near us always gives away breakfast burritos. Maybe they'll do that again this year. We'll see. But there's lots of fun stuff to see. So if you're not already aware, Bike Anywhere Day is coming, and it's Thursday, May 15th. Okay, so let's jump into what we're specifically going to talk about today. Again, this is bike-friendly driving. And I do a lot of presentations across all of San Diego County. I get to talk to truck drivers and school bus drivers and delivery drivers, as well as people who primarily use bicycles. When I do talk to those people who use driving as their driving a car as their primary form of transportation, I get a lot of questions about a lot of different things, and I've kind of distilled them down into these sort of 6 points. That said, again, if there was something that you wanted covered that wasn't covered, something that you wanted covered that you were worried wasn't going to be covered, feel free to put it in the chat. Specific questions about specific infrastructure, whatever else you got, I'm happy to cover it. So sharing should be in quotation marks there, but sharing the road is sort of a loaded phrase, and I'll go over what that means. Infrastructure, that means signs, signals, the specific things you'll see on the road, how you interact with them. We'll cover that. Crashes are a concern, and I don't want to shy away from that too much. So I'll make sure and cover some of the common causes of car versus bike collisions. There's also this concept of taking the lane, holding the lane, controlling the lane. That's something that cyclists may do sometimes, and I'll talk about when it's appropriate. The passing is something that's going to happen. You as a car driver are generally faster than people who are driving bikes, although not always. So in those situations, passing is going to happen. We'll talk about the specifics of that. And then I'll make sure and finish with, this is what we teach to bike drivers. So we're talking about this stuff from the concept of a car driver, but I do want to clue you in on what it is that we do teach to bike drivers who are out there using the same roads, with generally same rules and same rights as car drivers as well. So with a lot of these classes, it's important for us to establish sort of what are our goals, what are my goals when I come into any type of class. And increasingly, I've realized one of my goals is just to make sure that everyone recognizes the bicycle as a viable form of transportation. It's okay to use a bicycle on a street. It's okay to use a bicycle in the world. It's okay to use a bicycle for fun. It's okay to use a bicycle to get to work. So making sure that people recognize that roads are for human beings. Roads exist to move human beings through space. They don't just exist to move cars through space. There are a lot of people in cars that are going to be using these. There's also going to be people on buses. There's also going to be people on trucks and vans, and also bikes and scooters and skateboards and roller skates and rollerblades and whatever else. There are facilities that are just for cars that don't allow bicycles. Those are called freeways, highways. But generally speaking, roads are for people, not just people in cars. So there's going to be instances where you're sharing the road with car drivers. There's going to be instances where you as a car driver are going to be sharing the road with someone who's walking, sharing the road with someone who's riding a bike. There are specific things to see when you're on the road as a car driver that you're paying attention to. There are specific things to see on the road as a bike driver that you'd pay attention to. Let me jump over to one of the specific signs and signals that's common, but also has a lot of confusion around it. We'll talk more about some signs and signals in just a second, but let me start with these. So you're all familiar, I hope, with a stop sign. It's got 8 sides, it's red, it says stop in the middle. It means cease forward motion at the line. If you want to get technical about it. As a bike driver, we don't say that someone has to put their foot down necessarily, but they do have to come to a 100% full and complete stop at every single stop sign. Car drivers also have to come to 100% full and absolute complete stops at every single stop sign they come to. They're not allowed to slowly roll through that stop sign. That's absolutely against the law. Are people going to do that in real life? Absolutely. Should they do that in real life? Absolutely not. So as we go through these and talk about different signs and signals, you'll see it's important for you to remember that the law is one thing. What happens in real life is oftentimes another thing. And if you're relying on the sign or the signal to do the work for you, you're going to have a bad time. Red lights don't stop cars. This is a traffic signal. It's got a red, yellow, and green light. A red light does not stop a car. A red light has never stopped a car, ever. A red light is just a light. All it does is turn on and turn off. It tells the driver that they're supposed to stop, but it doesn't physically stop the car. The driver of the car is the one that does that. So if you're relying on that red light to stop the car, you're going to have a bad time. It's an indicator to the driver that they should stop the car, but we all know that in real life, lots of crazy things happen. So we should be aware of those. Another sign or signal that you may have seen, and sorry, I'll rephrase that. Another sign or signal that I know for a fact that you've seen in real life is this symbol here. It's got these two chevrons on top. A chevron is different than an arrow because it doesn't have a little line coming out of the bottom. And a picture of a bicycle underneath. Opportunity in the chat, and Jack, I do see your question. I'll get to it in just a second. Opportunity in the chat. Would you do me a favor and either tell me the name of this symbol, or for extra points, tell me what it means. And for extra points, give me a wrong answer. Right answers are fun. Wrong answers are more fun. Tell me what this symbol means. Tell me what it's called. Tell me what you know about this specific symbol on your screen. Annabelle says yield. Great. Max says das a shero. And he puts a little dash to indicate that this is a word that is a portmanteau. It's a combination of two words. Laura says shero. Ali says shero. Chevron is correct for what this top part is called, is the whole symbol. We were looking for shero. Chris says it gives you a speed boost. Frankly, yeah, if you've played a lot of Mario Kart, you're aware of when you see those Vs, if you roll over them, then you get an extra speed boost. We don't, unfortunately, have that technology to influence bikes or cars and give them speed boosts yet. Maybe one day we'll have that. But for right now, no speed boosts. Ian says bikes only. Hi, Ian. Thanks for coming. Renee says bike has right of way. Interesting. Cassie says share cars and bikes share the road. Interesting. Max also says 100 bonus points for using portmanteau in a meeting. Thank you. I didn't see any correct answers, which is fine because I asked for wrong answers. No big deal. I did see correct answers when it comes to the name of the thing, and it is called a shero. It's a portmanteau of the words share and arrow. Those two words combine to make shero. It's kind of interesting in the way that it's named because it is an indicator that there isn't enough room to share. It's an indicator. It's only going to be placed on specific lanes, we'll put it that way. It's not going to be on every single street that you drive on. It's not going to be every single street that you ride your bike on. It's only going to be on specific ones. And the ones in which it's painted are ones that are too narrow to share side by side with a car. When there isn't enough space for both a car and a bicycle to safely be side by side, then you'll see this shero symbol go down. Cars are required to give 3 feet of space when passing a bicycle. That's a law. It's been a law for a long time. If you're passing a bicycle and giving less than 3 feet of space, you're breaking the law. So what we're looking for is a road that has enough width for parking, the open door of the car, space for the bicycle, another 3 feet of passing space, and then 8 to 10, 12 feet for the car. If all those things don't happen at the same time, then we put the shero symbol down to indicate that this there's not enough room to pass. There's not enough room for both a car and a bicycle to be side by side. So if there isn't enough room for a car and a bicycle to be side by side, then they need to be single file. There's not enough room for a car to pass if that bicyclist is on the right side of the road. There's not enough room for that car to pass if that bicyclist is in the middle of the road. So sometimes you'll see bicyclists riding right down the middle of a travel lane, even though you feel like, well, there's probably enough room for them to be over on the right side of the road. The law regarding where a bicyclist should be in the road says they need to be as far right as practicable. There's another big word, Max. Portmanteau is a big word. Practicable is a big word. Practicable is different than possible. Possible means as far as you physically can. Practicable means as far as it makes sense. And in a situation where the lane is too narrow to share side by side with the car, as far to the right as practicable can mean in the middle of the road. You're discouraging that unsafe passing. If someone feels like they can barely kind of sort of squeeze by, then they're going to barely kind of sort of squeeze by. If you as a car driver see that bicyclist right in the middle of the road, it makes it very clear there isn't enough room to pass. And even if they were on the right side of the road, there wouldn't be enough room to pass. And the way I know that is when this shero symbol is painted. I should fully change lanes in order to pass a bicyclist when this shero symbol is painted on the road. Okay. That was a lot. I info dump early. Let's downshift. We're going to take it a little bit easier. Rules of the road as a general concept. Rules of the road as a general concept are for users of the road. So if you are a user of the road, then you are beholden to those rules of the road. Generally speaking, if you're a user of the road, the vast majority of those rules are going to apply to all different types of users of the road. So if I'm on a bicycle and I approach a stop sign, the rules are the same. If I'm in a car, as if I'm on a bus, as whatever else. Frankly, if I'm on a skateboard and I'm in the street and I'm approaching a stop sign, that's a rule of the road. I'm using the road. I'm beholden to that rule. If I'm not in the street, I'm on the sidewalk, then we've got different situation. But today what we're talking about are rules of the road, and those rules of the road are for the users of the road. California Vehicle Code 21200, we're starting at the beginning here, says that a person driving a bicycle has the same rights and responsibilities as a driver of a vehicle. The funny thing is, a bicycle is not technically a vehicle. So if there's a sign that says like no vehicles allowed, then bikes can sometimes still go that way. But you as the user of a bicycle are considered the user of a vehicle. That's weird legalese, and I'm sorry for even talking about it, but it's a thing. Okay. Let's jump over to, let me come up with a transition here. So when we're talking about rules of the road, part of the reason we have rules of the road is to, when people do something wrong, we give them a ticket and we take their money and we use it to build sports stadiums. The other reason to have rules of the road is to keep people predictable, and being predictable is one of the things that can prevent collisions and prevent crashes. These are some statistics that I'm not going to spend too much time on, but just as a general sort of way to think about this stuff, as a framing device. When we zoom out as far as national, we see that roughly 50% of car versus bike collisions were found to be the fault of bicyclists, and 50% of car versus bike collisions were found to be the fault of the car driver. In California specifically, of all of the crashes that happened across the entire state of California, only 4% of the crashes that happened were car versus bike type collisions. Now, that's a small number. A big number is 98%. 98% is the number of when a cyclist died on the road. 98% of the time, it was because they had a collision with a motor vehicle. So one of the ways that I sometimes frame this is using a bicycle isn't necessarily a dangerous activity. Using a bicycle near where there's also fast moving cars is the thing that can make it a dangerous activity. So for some people, what that means is let's separate these uses. Let's make it so that the bikes have their own space and the cars have their own space. Another way to help this is through education, and make sure that car drivers know what they're supposed to be doing, and make sure that bike drivers know what they're supposed to be doing. That's what we're focusing on today. That's what you're here for. Almost 90% of all of the collisions occurred at intersections or driveways, places where two roads cross each other. That's something to remember. Crashes generally aren't occurring on long straight roads, but on places where two roads cross each other, or driveways, which are essentially intersections, that's where those crashes are happening. And frankly, I'm surprised this is a big number. 26% involved wrong way bicycling. So 26% involved a bicyclist riding on the wrong side of the street. As a preview, one of the things that I talk about when I talk to bike drivers, I cite this statistic, and then I say, guess what? This is kind of a good thing in that you as a cyclist, if you don't ride on the wrong side of the street, you don't have to worry about that as a cause of car versus bike collisions. You can remove that as a cause of crashes. I no longer, that's a big section of that pie chart that's gone, right? By making sure that I, as a cyclist, am riding on the right side of the road. That's why they call it the right side of the road, not the wrong side of the road. Okay. Throughout this presentation and throughout any of the presentations I do, and from when I started talking 20 minutes ago to now, I haven't used the word accident. And I'm not going to use the word accident, even though it's a pretty common way to talk about car versus bike collisions, because these are not accidents. An accident is something that absolutely could not have been prevented no matter what. I was struck by lightning yesterday. Oh no, what a terrible accident that was. Bet you didn't know there's going to be so much vocabulary today, but there is. Instead, we, and I use the royal we, the people in this sort of field, people that focus on this stuff, tend to use the word collision or crash, because something could have been done to make it so that that crash didn't happen. So if it's we can place blame on one place or the other. Maybe it's the blame is primarily on the car driver. Maybe the blame is primarily on the bike driver. Maybe, frankly, the blame should be placed on the way the road was designed that made it more likely that that type of crash happened, because there was a road design that made it easy to go super fast in a car, and that made it more likely that crash happened. So there's blame that can be placed. So we're not going to use the word accident. We're going to use the word crash. We're going to use the word collision, because something could have been done oftentimes to prevent those crashes and those collisions. Where do crashes and collisions happen? On the micro level, they happen at intersections. On the macro level, they happen here. This is San Diego County. These numbers are obviously starting to get a little bit old, but that said, they're not going to change too much. It's darker where more crashes or collisions happen. We've got a little bulb here in Escondido. We got a bulb along the coast, the ocean side all the way down. Pacific Beach, Mission Beach, downtown San Diego, Coronado, Mid-City, El Cajon, Chula Vista, and Imperial Beach. What do all those places that I named have in common? That's where the people are. Crashes happen where there's a higher population of people. Crashes aren't generally happening on long straight roads where there's not a lot of other things going on, but where there are a lot of things going on, this is where we need to be focusing our efforts when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to education, making sure that people who are in these areas know as much as possible how to prevent different types of collisions. So that's macro. Let's get back to micro. This is an example of one of the literal most dangerous intersections in San Diego. This is the corner of Midway and Rosecrans in the Point Loma area. Here's another opportunity, fingers on keyboards. I'll keep it broad. Why? When you're looking at this picture, what are some things that you notice that may contribute to the fact that it is one of the more dangerous intersections in San Diego? What about it jumps out at you? What in general is something that you notice? Witty observation. What is different about this intersection? Give me one or two responses. Annabelle, yeah, you hit on a big one. And Chris also, yeah, same sort of concept. It's kind of easy to gloss over just because it's so obvious. It's big. It's a huge intersection. It's got a whole bunch of different things that are going to be happening all the time. If I count the lanes and count the little tiny bike lane over there as one, then let's all together now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and a half, I guess, from one side to the other. That's a big number. We're in double digits. That's crazy. So the physical size of the intersection, that's the first thing that I notice. Jack has noticed something that isn't here, which is, frankly, dedicated bicycle infrastructure through the intersection. So he says no green paint. Green paint is something that you may have seen more in the last few years. Green paint just simply serves to call attention to a place where you're more likely to see extra stuff going on, oftentimes bicyclists. Across intersection, you may see dashed green paint. It will not be a solid line of green across an intersection because, as you all know, solid lines have different rules than dashed lines. Dashed lines are lines that you're allowed to cross over if you're changing lanes or turning or whatever else. Solid lines are lines that you're not allowed to cross over. There are absolutely situations where you'll see a solid line and you feel like maybe I should go this way. No, you can't. It's solid. If it's solid, treat it like a wall. You can't do it. Double yellow line is definitely don't cross. Absolutely not. Just really, really hitting that hard. But even a solid yellow line is one that you can't cross. So those green paints that you see, they'll be solid green in places where there isn't going to be crossing over happening, and they'll be dashed in places where there is crossing over happening. So great one, Jack, calling attention to the lack of green paint. Max said something which is also true, which is that traffic never completely stops there. Cars are always turning or continuing on. Yeah, so I mean, it's a signalized intersection, but as you can see, there's a lot of turning movement. So I've got 2 lanes turning left here. I got 1 lane turning right. Over here, I got a right turn lane and at least 1 left-hand turn lane. You can see on this little sign here, it's 1 dedicated right, 2 dedicated straight, 1 dedicated left, and 1 left plus U-turn. Oh my gosh. So many different things happening. The rule for turning right on red is that you stop first before you turn right on red. Do car drivers come to full stops before they turn right on red? Absolutely not all the time. One of the things I hit with kids when I talk about these crosswalks is I say, look, when the crosswalk sign is on, are cars allowed to drive across that crosswalk? And they go, no, of course not. The crosswalk sign is on. And I go, yeah, they absolutely are. Cars that are turning left are allowed to turn across a crosswalk. Cars that are turning right are allowed to turn across a crosswalk. They're supposed to look out for cars, for kids. They're supposed to look out for adults. They're supposed to not cross when there is someone walking in the crosswalk. But there's nothing that physically stops them from doing that. So red lights don't stop cars. What else we got? Driving over stops, so many lanes on crosswalks. Yeah, so frankly, for me, it's the one of the big ones is the size of it. The other is the lack of dedicated bicycling infrastructure. So I've got a bike lane. It's so tiny. I mean, they've used the gutter as part of the width of the bike lane. So you can, I mean, and you can't ride your bike in the gutter. That's where the glass and whatever else is. The change in elevation is small, maybe a ½ inch, but between where the blacktop is and where the concrete is, that's absolutely enough of an elevation change that can take you down if you're not paying attention. I've got a right turn motion that's going to be happening here. I've got a buffer in between where the bikes are and where the cars are. It becomes dashed at the intersection that allows for cars to come across and turn right. And I, as a bike driver, if I was on this street and I was going straight through this intersection, it would be confusing for me. Would I stay on the very right side of the road and wait to get right hooked? Would I move out of the bike facility and into the travel lane? Those are things that we'll talk about more in our bike specific class. But for now, let's use that as a transition to talk about lane positioning. You, as the driver of a car, are roughly the width of the lane that you're traveling in. And so you can choose between, I'm either going to be in that lane or I'm going to be in this lane. As a bicycle driver, those people are not only choosing what lane they're in, but also choosing their position within that lane. There are a bunch of different things happening in this specific photo. One is, I believe it's hard to see, but there is a shero symbol underneath where this person is riding their bike. The other thing I'm noticing is these angled parked cars. You, as someone who's ever driven a car before, knows that when you're in one of these cars and you look out the rear view mirror or even look behind you, you're looking out into the road for other car drivers. Someone who's on a bike that's small, especially, that's right next to the back of these parked cars, is riding there because they don't want to be in anybody's way. Oh, I want to make sure that anyone that's behind me can just keep going and they don't even have to know that I'm there. The problem with that in this situation is if I'm right next to where those parked cars are, that's absolutely a situation where they're not going to see me and they'll back up into me and without even knowing that I was there. Whereas if the bike rider had been further out into the middle of the lane, it'd be easier for those car drivers to see him. So that's a reason why you may see people that are using bicycles closer to the middle of the lane. Absolutely legal. They need to ride as far right as practicable. They don't need to ride as far right as possible. And as in this situation, as far right as practicable is definitely closer to the middle of that lane. So there are a bunch of different reasons why someone would be closer to the middle of that lane. People tend not to hit things that they see. They tend to hit things that they don't see. If you see something, you're probably not going to hit that thing. So putting yourself in a position where you're visible is something that we do teach to bike drivers. And especially in the situation where the share is there, it's there for a reason. It's there because the lane is too narrow to share. And if it's too narrow to share, you may see bicyclists closer to the middle of that lane. Avoiding a parked car door is absolutely important. If you're turning left, if you need to make sure that the traffic light sees you, you're going to be closer to the middle of that lane to activate that loop detector. There's a bunch of different reasons. Most commonly, though, it's going to be because you want to position yourself in a place that keeps car drivers safe, frankly, and keeps you safe as well. Most of the travel lanes that you'll see there out in the world, especially around San Diego County, are roughly 11 to 12 feet wide. So 11 to 12 feet feels wide until you have more than one or two things going on. I'm not seeing any space for car parking here, obviously. And if there was space for car parking, we remember that there's space for the car, and then there's also space for the opening of that car door. This is a 2-lane road. We've got 2 lanes in either direction with a double yellow down the middle. If, as a bicyclist, the lane width is what you're seeing here, and you're putting yourself in this position, is there physically enough room for a bicycle and a car to be side by side without touching each other if they were standing still, say? Yeah, I suppose so. Using a ruler and math, you could argue that. For a wider vehicle, and they're allowed to be on the roads, 18-wheelers, trucks, big trucks, buses, whatever else, sometimes there isn't physically enough space. But even if there isn't physically enough space, is there 3 feet of space between? And in this situation, there is not. And if there is not 3 feet of space, then there isn't enough room to pass. It's hard to tell exactly what 3 feet of space is. And so by default, I would say when you have the ability to, fully change lanes in order to pass. And that's a preview of a slide that's coming up about a new law that's just passed. But generally speaking, this is a situation where you're seeing a bicyclist in the middle of the lane, and you as someone who's behind this bicyclist would be justified, I think, in thinking to yourself, oh, what the heck? This is 12 feet wide. That bicyclist's only 3 feet wide. Why aren't they way over to the right? Well, because even if they were over to the right, there wouldn't be enough room for you to pass that bicyclist and give 3 feet of space when doing so. That's the one I was looking for. So yeah, this is a position you may see a bicyclist. If you were a car driver and you were approaching this situation, and this is the width of the lane, and this is where the bicyclist was, this is an opportunity to fully change lanes in order to pass. Even though I feel like I can physically squeeze by, not a good opportunity to do so. The bicyclist putting themselves in the middle of the lane is doing that to let you know, hey, there isn't enough room for you to pass. There's not enough room for you to pass here, and there's not enough room for you to pass here. Here we've got an example of a single lane road, 1 lane in either direction. This is not a bicycling facility, this is a shoulder. And we've got, again, 1 lane in either direction. What I see here is 2 trucks who are doing their best to be accommodating. They are giving more than 3 feet of space when passing. In order to do that, they are crossing over a double yellow line. Technically, they're breaking the law when they do that. You cannot cross over a double yellow line. You especially can't cross over a double yellow line just to pass someone who's slower. So in that situation, based on what I see, based on the laws I know, based on the infrastructure that exists, am I saying that even though the bike is in the shoulder, those cars should physically wait in order to pass that bicyclist until it's safe to do so, until it opens up to a second lane, until there's a turn lane that gives them the space so they're not crossing over double yellow line? Is that really what they're supposed to do? According to the law, yes. Again, the law is one thing. What people do in real life is another thing. What keeps you the safest is maybe a third thing. I want you to be able to make decisions out of knowledge, not make decisions out of ignorance. When these people cross the double yellow line, they're breaking the law to do so. There are situations where people are going to break the law in real life. That's a thing that happens. Be aware of that. Be aware of your own decisions and make your own decisions based on what keeps you safest, what keeps other people safest, what the law is. Those are all things to take into account. More examples of bike-specific infrastructure. These are 3 photos of a class 4 separated facility. The first 2 are in the North Park area. This is from the opening of the 30th Street cycle track. That's a specific type of bike facility. This is a little bit further down heading into South Park on that same cycle track. And this is in downtown San Diego on J heading east. A cycle track is unique because it is physically separated from where the cars are through these bollards. Now, these bollards are not made of cement, they're not made of steel, they're not made of titanium. If you run over them with your car, they're designed to do very little damage to your car and not really upset things too much. That's a good thing if you're worried about car damage. That's a bad thing if you're worried about physical protection. In other places, they'll have more physical protection. Sometimes it's a curb, sometimes it's a physical wall, whatever else. This serves generally, frankly, as just sort of a reminder to the cars that this isn't supposed to be where they're driving. And it is physical, but it's not necessarily going to stop a car. The other thing to remember is that on situations where there is a cycle track, a separated facility with intersections in between, with driveways in between, you can see here, sorry, it's a little small, get your nose close to your screen. There's green paint. There's dashed green paint across the intersections. Those are places where, as a car driver, if I plan on turning right into that driveway, if I plan on turning right into that intersection, it's especially important for me to look before I turn. Look behind me even before I turn. Is there a bicyclist approaching from behind me? Because when I make that right turn, I'm crossing over where that green paint is. That's a place to pay extra attention. And it's sometimes hard to see, frankly. And that's another example of that right hook style of crash, which I'll talk about in just a second. We've, in addition to those separated facilities here, got bike paths, got bike lanes, got bike routes. We've got roundabouts. Roundabouts are fun. I got a whole specific slide about it here. There's basically 3 important things to remember when it comes to a roundabout. One is traffic in the roundabout never stops, ever, for any reason, ever. Once you're in that roundabout, you're rolling. The whole point of a roundabout is it's better than a stop sign and it's better than a stoplight because you don't have to stop if you don't need to. If there's nobody else around when I'm approaching that roundabout, I'm rolling through and I'm rolling out. Once you're in that roundabout, even if there are a bunch of people around, you're never stopping. If you're in the roundabout and you're doing your lap and someone on a bicycle starts to approach that roundabout, you don't stop. If you're in the roundabout and you're doing your lap and someone in a car approaches the roundabout, you do not stop. You keep moving always. There's no special rules for bicycles. If you're approaching that roundabout, you're not there yet. You are yielding to traffic in the roundabout. I'm approaching the roundabout. I see someone already in the roundabout. I'm waiting until I'm certain I know where they're going. I'm waiting until I'm certain they're out of the way before I enter that roundabout. Traffic entering the roundabout yields to traffic in the roundabout. Traffic in the roundabout never stops. And you see the share symbol as previously discussed here in the roundabout, right? That share symbol indicates that this lane is too narrow to share. It's too narrow to share by design. It's frankly a good thing that it's too narrow to share. If this was 2 or 3 lanes wide, and there are roundabouts in other countries that are that wide, you can go across the border down to Mexico and see one without driving too far. But here in the United States, there are very few, I've heard of maybe less than 10 roundabouts in the country that are more than 1 lane, because it's confusing. We don't know what to do with it. And if there was more than 1 lane, if there was a bike lane in this roundabout, and I was staying in the bike lane because I wanted to go straight across, and then someone who wasn't in the bike lane was driving a car, wanted to leave the roundabout, that's an opportunity for a collision. So there are no bike lanes in roundabouts. Before the roundabout starts, the bike lane is gone. You can barely see the share symbol here because there is no roundabout approaching that. There is no bike lane approaching that roundabout. because before you get to the roundabout, you're going to merge into traffic with everybody else. You and cars are in the same line waiting to do what you're going to do. Once you're out of that roundabout, great. Now you're back into the bike specific facility. But approaching a roundabout and in a roundabout, there are no bike lanes because it'd be too complicated for that crossover motion to happen. Okay, let me jump over to, I'm going to do crash. Well, no, let's do this one first. So I already talked about the concept of dooring. I just wanted to spend a little bit more time on it. The wording of the law here is kind of funny. So it's California Vehicle Code 22517, which says that it's illegal, that it's improper. It says that you cannot open your car door unless it is safe to do so. So by default, you can't open that door at all. If it's safe to open it, you can open it, right? So if you are driving a car and you open the car door and someone hits your car door, that's your fault for opening the door when it's unsafe. Also, what we teach to bicyclists oftentimes is try and stay away from that door zone to prevent yourself from being in a situation where the door opening would be a problem in the first place. But as a car driver, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're not opening the car door into a situation where it's unsafe. Maybe that's because of a bicyclist. Maybe that's because it's a narrow road and there's a big truck coming and they're going to hit your door. One of the tricks we oftentimes use, or teach anyway, is what you're seeing in this picture, which is opening the door with the opposite hand. So if you're opening the car door with the hand that's closest to the door, it's easy to do that without turning around. But if you get into this habit of opening the door with the opposite hand, now I'm physically moving my body when I do it, and I can look behind me. A mirror will tell you when it's not safe. A mirror will not tell you when it is safe. I'll say that again because it's fun. A mirror will tell you when it's not safe. A mirror will not tell you when it is safe, right? You need your eyes. You need to physically look behind you to see for that part. So that's doors. Okay. I've alluded to it like 19 times. Let's talk about it more specifically. The right cross, right hook. There's a left cross and there's a right hook. It's like boxing terms, I think. One of the more common types of this right hook is when the bicyclist is on the wrong side of the road, riding towards the intersection. The car driver turns right, and that's a cause for a collision. What I teach to bike drivers is obviously, I hope, stay on the right side of the road. If you are going to be on the sidewalk, be extra aware that every single driveway is an intersection, every single intersection is an intersection, and be aware of the fact that you guys already know this. When you're driving a car and you're about to turn right, what direction do you look? You don't look right. You look left. You look left to see the cars. And when there's a gap in the traffic, you go. You're supposed to look both ways before you cross the street, but not everybody does that. And if a bicyclist is on the wrong side of the street and then they're hit by a car that's turning right, obviously that's the fault of the bicyclist for being on the wrong side of the street. But the crash could have been maybe prevented had the car driver looked to the right before actually turning right. Something to think about. Another example of the right hook that can occur when the bicyclist is moving in the same direction as traffic is here. California Vehicle Code 22100. Here's another example of that word, practicable. It says that car drivers have to turn right from as far right as practicable. You're not allowed to turn right from the middle of the road. That's annoying for everybody else around you. It's confusing and frustrating. You merge over to the right first, and then you make your right turn. When you're not merging over to the right first, and you're waiting to make your right turn until you're in the intersection, this absolutely opens you up to that right hook situation. Turning in front of the bicyclist that you either didn't see at all or assumed was also turning right because they're way on the right side of the road. What we teach to bicyclists is when you approach these intersections and you plan on going straight through, you should probably be going straight through closer to the middle of that lane. And keeping yourself on that right side does make it more likely that that right hook happens. It's absolutely going to be the fault of the car driver for not making the right turn from as far right as practicable. So you're merging first and then you're turning. Be aware of this today. You're going to make a right turn in a car, I think. before you do it, be aware of the fact that California Vehicle Code 22100 says you need to make that right from as far right as practicable. You're merging first and then you're turning. When you're turning, this is where that movement of looking behind you, especially in your cycle tracks, becomes really important, because a cycle track is built up in such a way that it is hard, if not sometimes impossible, to turn right from as far right as practicable, because we've got that bike facility in between the curb and the car lane. So in those situations, it's extra important for you to look over your shoulder and look to see if there's anybody there. Maybe it's a runner, maybe it's a jogger, maybe it's a person on a bicycle, whatever. But you're looking first, especially in a situation without a bike lane or any kind of infrastructure. You're looking first and then you're merging, then you're making your movement. So in the same way you'd merge across any travel lane, left, right, whatever, you're looking first, then you're signaling, then you're merging, and then you're making the turn. There's a multi-step process that happens. And when those get condensed down to just a single movement, that's where we have problems. So we're looking for the bicyclist, we're looking over our shoulder to do it. You can drive in bike lanes, especially or if only when the line becomes dashed. We talked about that already. You've seen a bike lane, it's a solid line, it's dashed before an intersection. That's allow you as a car driver to drive into that bike lane. If you're side by side with a bicycle and you feel like, well, I'm a car driver, I can go faster than them, I'm going to speed up really fast and then turn in front of them, probably not the best movement. It's hard to judge the speed of a bicycle, especially e-bikes can accelerate faster than you would expect. So generally speaking, you want to be extra aware of that and not cut anybody off. On a straightaway, we're passing still. And in those situations where we're passing, we've talked about 3 foot being the very bare minimum. More is probably good. 3 feet of passing can still apply when the person is in the bike lane. Because if I'm in the bike lane and you pass me with less than 3 feet of space, that's not great. And if I'm not in a bike lane and you pass me with less than 3 feet of space, that's equally not great. So the fact that there's a line of paint in between where the bike driver is and where the car driver is, isn't any kind of protection. So still being aware of the fact that you're giving space when possible is definitely a good thing. The third most common type of crash is the sister but opposite to the right hook, and it's this left cross. You've been in this situation where you've got, there's no dedicated turn lane, say, but the light is green, you're waiting to turn left, and you don't notice the bicycle, whatever else. There's a bunch of different reasons that this can happen, but it happens often enough that they've been given a name for it. It's this left cross. There's ways to prevent it. One of them is, frankly, it's a way to prevent a lot of different types of crashes, and that's just slowing down, taking your time, not rushing things. It's easy for a bicycle to hide if they're behind a row of cars that's coming through an intersection and going straight. I'm waiting to go. I see that last car go through and I think, great, it's time for me, without realizing there was a bicycle behind that last car. So that's an extra thing to look out for. So you're waiting to make that left turn. If you're making the left turn, I feel like I have to say this out loud. I don't know why this is a new thing that's happening, but you've all seen this. It's a green, it's not a dedicated turn lane. There is someone who's going to be turning left. And as soon as that light turns green, they turn left immediately in front of the cars that are even going straight. That is absolutely not allowed, absolutely not a good idea, absolutely never, ever, ever do that. If you're waiting to turn left, you're yielding to the straight through traffic. Straight through traffic goes first. After there's a gap, then you're allowed to turn left. Again, that's one of those things that I thought was common knowledge, common sense. Common sense is not as common as it used to be, I guess. Okay, what from all right, Jack, I see your question. I will get to it, I promise. Let me do, in fact, I'll do this slide and then I'll get to both your questions. Okay, bicycles moving as a group. There are situations where more than one bicyclist is going to be riding at the same time. Sometimes those bicyclists will be single file, sometimes they'll be side by side. And I think it's easy to assume, well, if there's 2 bikes that are side by side, then that means that they're doing something wrong, when in fact that isn't always the case. Sometimes they're side by side because it's what makes the most sense. If they were alone, you might see a bicyclist in the middle of the lane because that lane's too narrow to share. And if they're side by side, the bicyclist is still in the middle of the lane. It's not because their friend is there, it's because the lane's too narrow to share. So there are reasons why it's okay. If you are going to pass a group of bicyclists, when they're all bunched up and side by side, it can make it sometimes easier to pass them, as opposed to if there were 75 people all single file all down the road. That would take more time. So if you want to do a quick tap on the horn to say hello, that's encouraged, but don't freak anybody out unnecessarily. Okay, Jack, we're getting down to our last couple slides, so let me switch back to my roundabout to answer your question. At UCSD, there's a roundabout that goes bike lane to share out to bike lane. I don't understand why the lane is wide in to accommodate cyclists. I don't either, and I'd have to see a picture of that to know exactly what it is that you're talking about. But it does make me think about this example here of, yes, there is a bike lane before the roundabout, and then there is not a bike lane anymore. It's a single file. And then there's a bike lane after. And that's because we can't be side by side when we're in a roundabout, because some people are leaving and some people are going straight. And that means that there's going to be a cause for collision. But if you let me know what that specific intersection is, maybe I'll go look at it and I'll be able to talk about it later. You also asked earlier if there is a bike lane that is parallel to the sidewalk, is biking on the sidewalk prohibited? The rules about riding bikes on sidewalks are pretty specific. And they are unique to the area in which they're located. Cities have different rules about sidewalk riding, and the general rule is you're not allowed to ride on the sidewalk in a business district and allowed to ride on the sidewalk in a residential area. If there was a residential area that had a bike lane next to it, okay, the law isn't going to change based on whether there's a bike lane there or not. The law is going to change based on whether it's a residential area or a business district. That said, I never encourage anybody to ride bikes on sidewalks, even if the law says you're allowed to. It's weird, it's confusing. The speed is going to be so much different than the other people around you. Every driveway is an intersection. Every intersection is a place where they're not expecting to see you. So not really ever recommended. Okay, let's see. Let me skip that. Now I'll do it real quick. Okay, safe passing law, 3 feet of space is the bare minimum. Oftentimes when people pass, they give just 2 wheels on one side of the line and 2 wheels on the other. That's like a halfway lane change. This rule says, no thank you, give a full lane change if you're gonna pass a bicyclist when safe, most important part of the sentence. Fully change lanes in order to pass a bicyclist. I think it's common sense. We already kind of talked about it, but now it's in writing. The daylighting has really started to get enforced now in 2025. You can't park next to the corner of an intersection. You were never able to do that, but they're going to paint more of that red. And you can't park right next to a crosswalk, because a crosswalk is basically an intersection also. And if you are parked right next to a crosswalk, it makes it hard for the people walking to see the traffic, makes it hard for the people driving to see the pedestrians. So they've increased the red zone next to intersections and next to crosswalks. They've got a leading pedestrian interval that they've called it. So sometimes at busier intersections, even though the light is red, the light will be green for pedestrians. So you get your little pedestrian sign there. That'll pop up even before the light changes to give people a head start. And the new rule is that bikes are going to treat that pedestrian signal as their cue to go as well. So they get a little bit of a head start, and then it reduces the opportunity for right hooks and left crosses. For 2025, the main thing was the e-bike rules. They've been more specific about the differentiation between the different classifications of e-bikes, class 1, class 2, and class 3. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can take the e-bike class. That is another one of the classes that we offer. So to sum things up, this is what we teach to bicyclists. It's basically similar to a lot of things that we've talked about today. First come, first served applies to car drivers and bike drivers. Yielding and signaling applies to car drivers and to bike drivers. Even if you don't know any laws at all when it comes to driving a bicycle, if you're remaining predictable, then you're probably going to be in a good space. Communication is a big one. I teach hand signals, but I don't emphasize them as strongly as maybe some other people because it's only one form of communication. Eye contact is also communication. Your voice is communication. Just waving your hands in general is communication. Not everybody's going to know what it means if you put your arm up in the air. But if I make eye contact with the car driver behind me and put my arm out to the side, then they know that something is going to be happening, and that's some form of communication. So that's pretty good. We covered all this stuff already. If you're watching the recording, then pause the video and read this now. If you want more information, because we are out of time now, our YouTube page has a bunch of cool videos. Some are 30 seconds long, some are 5 minutes long, some are an hour long. There's more to learn. And there's more to learn in all the different classes that we teach. So today we talked about this green one here, the bike-friendly driving class. There's also Commuting 101, Commuting 202, all about e-bikes. We can come to your workplace and do a tune-up, do a quick check of the bicycles that you ride your bikes to work. It's a fun one. And that's especially important ahead of Bike Anywhere Day. As a reminder, Thursday, May 15th is Bike Anywhere Day. If you wanted to use that opportunity to get out of your car, do it. You don't have to ride your bike all the way even. Put your bike on the bus. Use multiple forms of transit. There's a bunch of different cool ways to get around town. And if you're only limited to cars, then you're limiting yourself. There's a lot of cool other stuff happening. Melina has put the link to the survey in the chat. Please feel free to click that link. If you'd like to do it with your phone, you can scan this QR code. That'll get you to that survey as well. I'll also probably send it in a follow-up email at some point. And with that, I'll take Jack's question and any others that I have, and then we'll close it out. I've seen San Diego efforts on bike safety by widening lanes for cyclists. Who do I contact to improve bike lanes in the neighborhood? Two different points there. Widening bike lanes for cyclists. Yeah, I mean, the two-way cycle tracks that you'll see downtown, it's a separated cycling facility, but it's two-way on one side of the street. Those are pretty wide. But generally speaking, yeah, as we get more and more people out of their cars and onto bicycles, we're, I hope, going to get to the point where the bike lanes are too narrow for all the bikes and bike drivers that want to use them. So at that point, we will have to widen those. If you see some that especially need that, the Get It Done app is a cool tool for the city of San Diego anyway. Download that app and you can report things like a power line fell down, a tree needs to be cut down, and there's no bike lane here and there should be, or this bike lane is too narrow, or this bike lane is too wide, or whatever it is. But that Get It Done app is a good way to do things. Also, feel free to reach out to us at the Bicycle Coalition, sdbikecoalition.org. You can find contact us pages on that website, and I'd be happy to talk to you more. So with that, I'll leave it there. I appreciate you all coming. As I said, I'll be recording this class and make it available to you and your friends afterwards. Yeah, feel free to send me any questions afterwards, and we'll see you on the road every day, but also Bike to Work Day is in May. Thank you, Cassidy, for coming. We appreciate you and all the work you do, and I appreciate all of you guys for being here. So you're now more educated than your peers. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thanks so much. We'll see you later.